One of the biggest surprises I've seen, one of the biggest surprises I've heard all year. We need to discuss. Let's go. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. You have reached the Modest Audiophile channel and my name is Mark. As we stated at the beginning of the introduction, we're here to talk about probably the biggest surprise I've had all year in some of my used records. I shouldn't be surprised, but I am nonetheless, and I wanted to discuss with you today. And what we're here to talk about today is Dire Straits Love Over Gold. More on this in a second. Love Over Gold is the fourth studio album by Dire Straits. It was released on September 24th, 1982 by Vertigo Records internationally and by Warner Brothers Records in the United States. It was recorded at the Power Station in New York City between March 8th and June 11th, 1982. Knopfler produced the album with Neil Dorfman as his engineer, the first in a long line of collaborations between the two. For those who want to know what some of the gear that Mark Knopfler was using, for some of you gearheads, real quick, okay? Knopfler used several guitars during the session, including 4 Schecter Stratocasters, 2 red, 1 blue, and 1 sunburst, a black Schecter Telecaster, an Ovation classical guitar on Private Investigations in Love Over Gold, a custom Erlewine automatic on Industrial Disease, and his 1937 National Steel guitar on Telegraph Road. Knopfler also used Ovation 12 and 6-string acoustic guitars during the recording. So the band at this time consisted of Mark Knopfler, lead guitar and lead vocals, Hal Lindes on guitar, John Ilsley on bass, Alan Clark on keyboards, Pick Withers on drums, Ed Walsh was a synthesizer programming, Mike Mainery, vibraphone and marimba. On the production side of the house on this, Mark Knopfler was the producer, Neil Dorfman was the engineer, Barry Bongiovi was the assistant engineer, and Bob Ludwood did the mastering at Masterdisc. All right, so let's go over the packaging real quick, okay? Nothing fancy about this. Here is the, well, let me go back a little bit. So I picked this up from a brother-in-law of mine earlier this year, like probably January maybe. And you selling a few records, I bought a few records. And this is one of the ones I came across. Always been a big Dire Straits fan. I probably came into Dire Straits, like most of my age group, Gen Xers, when Brothers in Arms came out. I think that was in '85. So I was 15, turning 16 that year. That got me introduced to Dire Straits amongst all our friends. And then, of course, we heard Sultans of Swing and all of that. But then after Brothers in Arms went and started to develop and dig into the rest of the catalog, I remember the live album Alchemy. I listened to that tape, that cassette tape. I wore that cassette tape out when I was in the Air Force. Man, what a great... I haven't listened to it since. I should probably go back out and find that. But anyway, so yeah, Love Over Gold was always a big time favorite of mine, really, for that the first side, Telegraph Road and Private Investigations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's how I got into this album by way of Brothers in Arms. I'm really curious for those that are my age, or any age for that matter. How did you come into Love Over Gold? Because man, I think this is probably, it's probably my second favorite album. Really, for the first side. But anyway, let's go over the packaging on this. As you can see, the famous cover here. My brother-in-law, or somebody at one time, paid $5 for this thing. I paid $15 for this thing, and I did a lookup in Discogs. There were a lot of these produced, so you can find some pretty good copies of this in the wild, I presume, if you're not looking to go the Mofi route. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, here's the front. Here's the back. Nothing special there, right? Iconic album cover. On the inside was this record sleeve, and really what you're getting is the lyrics on here, and again the production production down there as well. So nothing special there. And really what I want to talk about today is, if you get yourself this is an original copy, 1982, US pressing. It sounded so good that I'm not so sure I need to go after the 45 RPM. I've got the Mofi for Dire Straits, one of my best sounding albums. It's incredible. That vinyl is dead quiet. This was a little bit of surface noise. Now again, I just hand cleaned it. I didn't. I need to invest in a serious cleaner in the not too distant future. But I cleaned this thing a bunch of times. You get a little bit of surface noise. I think maybe one or two very low volume pops, if that makes any sense to you. It was in great condition and it sounds great. Again, just a little bit of surface noise. It's probably for the quality of the vinyl more than anything else. Very thin vinyl. I'm not sure how many grams it is, but my guess it's certainly no more than 140 grams. How does it sound? All right, so let's talk about how it sounds. Really quick, for those that don't know my system, look in the description below, but it's being played on a Audio-Technica LP120 turntable going through a Pro-Ject 2-box S2 with upgraded Genalex Golden Lion tubes into a Rotel A11 Tribute integrated amp, and then out these Wharfedale 85th Anniversary Edition speakers. All right, enough of that. So, as always, the speakers are 10 feet apart, I'm sitting 10 feet away, and I turned the volume up on this to 73 this time. If you're a fan of the channel, you've been watching, most of the time I'm setting the volume up at 74. This record was cut a little hotter than I expected, so I brought it down to 73 to get into that sweet spot of an average dB of between, say, 83 and 85. All right, so we did a couple dB checks. The first one was private investigations. I think, okay, so the dB for private investigations, we had a low end of 48, a high end of 95. I can't read my writing right now, so the picture will show what the average is, but I think it says 79 here. We'll see. I did another dB check for industrial disease, and this has a wide dynamic range. We have a low end of 44, high end of 98 dBs for an average of 85 decibels. And again, that was at volume setting of 73 on the Rotel. Okay, so let's talk about the soundstage real quick. And this album really surprised me. For a 1982 album, original pressing of this, got some age on it. The vinyl was not that, again, it's not a 180 gram vinyl or 200 gram vinyl. This is a pretty floppy 140 gram vinyl. I don't know why I think this way, but I'm like, oh, it can't sound terribly good. Yeah, I was wrong. Soundstage on this thing was 6 feet plus on either side of the speakers, and at times it did get up to the ceiling, which is about 5 feet higher than my tweeters. I shouldn't be amazed. I mean, all of the Dire Straits stuff sounds so good. And it's the same with this one as well. This thing sounds incredible from a soundstage, imaging, and depth perspective. You got so as far as the imaging and depth, you have laser focused imaging. I mean, very, very easy to close your eyes and see all the instruments with your mind's eye in their rightful place. And that's not a hard task at all with this. And for those that you know this album, you already know this. But for those that don't know this album very well, yeah, it sounds wonderful. The depth in this thing is great as well. I'd say the depth in this thing goes from the back of the speakers forward into the room. Maybe a little bit behind the speakers, but you're getting a good four, in some cases, 4+ feet of depth, or that sense of depth rather, from the back wall into the room. Excellent imaging and depth on this thing. All right, as I said earlier, I cleaned it several times, and every time I play this, I clean it again. You're getting a little bit of surface noise that you can only hear in between the songs. It's not an issue whatsoever when you're listening to the songs. Maybe some slight pops once or twice per side. Again, not an issue. Not an issue where I'm like, I have to go out and replace this album right now. So let's go from, bass, mids, and treble. What were we getting out of this album in general? The bass was big, full, and I just put yes. No issues with bass thing. The entire tone stack in this album is exquisite. Great bass, nothing lacking here. The mids were excellent, upper mids even better. The guitars, vocals are awesome. And again, my system really loves the mids, especially these particular speakers. The treble was excellent. You had that nice sparkle and sizzle up on top. No issues whatsoever with the bass, mids, or treble on this album. It's fantastic. Tonality, some of the words that were coming to my mind while I was listening to this. It's full. You're swimming in tones / music. You're surrounded by the music in this album. It's punchy. It's pure. Again, silly words, I know, but pure, meaning everything just sounded so flipping good. Full of energy. So much going on this album, more so than I ever felt before. Now, granted, I had listened to this album countless times as a kid, in the car, on other people's old 1980s rack systems. I've never heard it on a modestly priced hi-fi system. And I was hearing things I've never heard before, and that's why we all do this. It's fantastic. And I just put here, maybe one of the best 33 RPM records that I own, hands down. This sounds so good that I'm not so sure I need to go out right now and get the 45 RPM from Mobile Fidelity. It sounds so good that I'm going to put that off for a while until I have just money laying around, which probably won't happen for quite some time. I'll invest my dollars into other records for right now because this thing sounds so good. All right, let's go with some of the songs here. Side 1. Knopfler was inspired to write Telegraph Road after Dire Straits tour bus drove for miles along the Telegraph Road in Detroit. Didn't know that. And here's his quote. I was reading a book at the time called The Growth of the Soil, and I just put the two together. It's the same road, and it just went on and on and on forever. It's like what they call linear development. And I just started to think. I wondered how that road must have been when it started. What it must have first been. I was actually sitting in the front of the tour bus at the time. Cool. All right. So let's talk about the song. All right. So this is what I got out of Telegraph Road. First of all, it fills the entire room right off the bat. You get that ambient sound. You just know right from the get-go that the whole room is going to... The sound fills the whole room. Right at the beginning, after you get that, probably synthesizer sound, you've got that hi-hat right there in the center. Clear as day. On the left-hand side, you've got the piano. On the right, you got some bongos, I believe. And in the center, you've got that Strat. And it fills up the entire soundstage from left to right. Big soundstage, 6+ feet on either side of the speakers. And in my room, that's pushing about 22 feet of a soundstage. Pretty, no issues whatsoever. Fantastic soundstage. What I put was incredible drum sound, full and powerful. The drums on this album, what a punchy sound you get throughout the entire album. It's fantastic. Has nice warm bass, a great listening experience. I put a roller coaster of sound and a kaleidoscope of tones. And I was drinking green tea at the time, boys and girls, okay? First song, and I'm spent. It's 14 minutes and 20 seconds long, and once you get through it, it's like, holy crap. And that was just the first song on the album. Awesome first song. Awesome way to open up an album. Telegraph Road. You already know that, though. All right, second song. Last song on the first side. Private Investigation. This is how it builds up, and it just kind of blooms out of the soundstage. You got those keyboards playing chords at first, right? And then on the left, you've got... On the left, you got a guitar. On the left, the guitar hits. Then on the right, you get the same lick of the guitar hitting, and then you've got the piano in the center, just kind of tickling those keys a little bit. And then after that, the acoustic guitar right in front, center soundstage with the piano right behind it. Layers and layers and space between these instruments. You can see it all with your mind's eye. Imaging was fantastic. This music, this song sucks you in. You get that feeling where it sucks you in and you're surrounded by it. Such pure clarity of instruments I put here. The walking, right, where you hear the individual walking in the background, never heard it more clear than I heard it here. The breathing is so vivid and clear. It's a snappy, punchy, the best. Well, let's just say, listening to this album a few times over the last several months and more importantly over the last couple days, I've never heard this sound better in my life. What a great pressing this is. All right, let's flip over to side 2. Side 2 starts with Industrial Disease. Wide soundstage once again. You've got the guitar, the keyboards, and the drums, really that rim of the drums. You know how it starts, you know. I don't need to tell you any more than that. Best version I've heard of Industrial Disease. Beats all the CDs I've listened to in the car, beats the boombox, beats the streaming. Man, slapping this album on my turntable, I'm still amazed even talking about it right now. What a great sounding album. Great sounding version of Industrial Disease. I put excellent separation, never better. All right. Over to 2 songs that I don't listen to as much as I've listened to the first 3 songs on this album. Side 2, song 2, Love Over Gold, title track. First thing I put down here is the tone just blooms out like a rose coming out at you. Oh, fantastic. Great acoustic on the right of the soundstage, about mid-high. And you're really getting to hear the reverb and maybe a little bit of delay going on. And you don't get that sensation when you're not sitting in front of a modestly priced system and paying attention to the music. You just don't get it in the car. You don't get it on the radio. You don't get it on the Phono system. You don't get it unless you are sitting between your speakers. I'm rambling here, but man, this song just blooms out at you. Fantastic. So much going on. The vibraphone being played on this song. You're getting those tones and those notes being played, and they're being played in space. Again, you close your mind's eye, you close your eyes, and you see with your mind's eye this 3-dimensional holographic version of this, or presentation rather, of this music, and it just, again, it sucks you in. You have no choice but to pay attention. What a great ride. Last thing I put on Love Over Gold, most fun I've ever had with this song. Yeah, I mean, now I listen to this I look forward to Love Over Gold, and I look forward to the last song on this album, which is It Never Rains, where before, they were just additives to the overall album. But man, when you sit back and you listen to this thing, really listen to it, these songs are fantastic for those that aren't aware. Most of you probably are. Again, the last song, It Never Rains, you get more crisp hi-hat up front, a very detailed vocal. And Mark's coming right out of that center image, about 1.5 foot higher than the tweeters. Locked in. The vocal image is solid. You feel the pulsating energy of this song. It really, again, sucks you in. The soundstage depth. There's something going on here, and maybe some of you can write in the comments that are, Dire Straits aficionados. But what I got a sense out of this was there was some tricks being played with fading. I mean, we all know panning left to right, but I think there was some fading going on in here because the soundstage was, you got this sense of depth being changed pretty dramatically. And I don't know the technical term for that, but it was really intriguing, really fun. Never ever heard that in my life before. That was a new one on me. The soundstage on this song was definitely coming from behind the wall back here. Again, the speakers are 3 feet in front of the wall, and the soundstage was definitely coming from outside of this room. I put great thump in the snare, really great thump in all the drums, but the snare on this particular song was fantastic. It takes you elsewhere. It transports you someplace else. and I had to remember that this was the last song on a vinyl record. By the time this thing was over, I'm sitting here kind of spent, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta run over there and take the needle up because I don't have an automatic return. Yeah, this song definitely has that sense where you're sitting here and the sound stage is just encompassing, it's wrapping around you. That's it. What a flipping great sounding album, you know, for 15 bucks. And I'll put some information from Discogs here. You can find this out there in the wild. The average price on this thing is about 12 bucks. Again, depending on the plant, the pressing plant, they produced a lot of these albums, so it shouldn't be too difficult to go find out there. I think there's been a couple represses. And then, of course, you do have the Mofi as well. And I don't know if I need to get that right now for this. Maybe I wait a little bit longer. That might be a great comparison down the road when I have a little bit more discretionary spending. But for right now, I think I'm solid in sticking with this original 1982 US pressing of Love Over Gold. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I just wanted to get this quick one out. I wanted to share the news that if you can find an original 1982 US pressing, or for those of you over in the UK, I'm sure a first pressing of, and there's probably more of them over there because this album did do quite a bit better in the UK charts than it did in the US charts. Shouldn't be difficult to find an original pressing of this 1982 release. So do yourself a favor, everybody. For those of us in the United States, it's Independence Day week. You can find some time, do that. If you don't have this album, go let your fingers do the walking at your local used record store. You may just find it. And for those of you that want to go all the way right now and get yourself the Mofi copy, which is, I don't even know the price on that, but I would imagine it's fantastic as well. Yeah, set yourself some time this week. You deserve it. Take a rest. Slap this thing on the turntable, kick back with your favorite beverage, and enjoy the sonic bliss that's going to come out of your speakers. What a great listening experience. That's it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great week, and I'll get another one out shortly. Take care. Bye.